Have you ever wondered how big companies find their security flaws before the bad guys do? Well, they actually hire professional lockpickers for the digital world. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on ethical hacking, the core principles used to defend our most valuable data. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, we're taught to think of hacking as something criminal, something that causes damage. So how in the world can it be ethical? Answering that question is the key to, well, unlocking this entire field.
So what's the real difference between a cybercriminal and a cyber defender? You know, it's not really about the tools or the fancy techniques they use. It all boils down to two really simple but crucial ideas: permission and intent.
Right. So an ethical hacker is basically hired to think and act just like a malicious one. But here's the twist. Their goal isn't to cause harm. It's to stress test the defenses and find all the weak spots before a real attacker can. It's kind of like hiring someone to try and break into your own house, just so you can see where you need stronger locks.
And this is where things get a little more interesting. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got your white hats. These are the certified good guys. They've got full permission to do what they do. But in the middle, you find the gray hats, and they operate in this really murky, kind of legally ambiguous area. They might find a security flaw without asking first, but their intent is usually just to report it, not to cause any real damage.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on who ethical hackers are, let's talk about what exactly they're hired to protect. In the whole world of information security, everything, and I mean everything, comes down to protecting three core principles.
These three ideas are so fundamental to everything, they're famously known as the CIA triad. This is the absolute bedrock of all information security. So it breaks down pretty simply. Confidentiality is all about keeping secrets, well, secret. Integrity is making sure that data hasn't been messed with. And availability just means that the systems are actually up and running when you need to use them. These three goals, CIA, are the crown jewels that every single security measure is trying to safeguard.
Now, to protect those crown jewels, ethical hackers have to learn to think like the enemy. And this isn't just random guesswork. No, it's a very systematic process of identifying vulnerabilities, sizing up threats, and at the end of the day, calculating risk.
That whole process always starts with finding the vulnerabilities. You can just think of these as unlocked doors in your security system. A vulnerability could be anything from out-of-date software to a really weak password policy. Then, of course, you've got the threat. The threat is the burglar who's walking down the street and just happens to notice that unlocked door. This could be an actual person, or it could just be a piece of malware that's constantly scanning the internet for weaknesses.
And that finally brings us to risk. Risk is just the calculation, right? It's the probability that the burglar is actually going to try the doorknob and an estimate of how much damage they could cause if they get in. See, you can't fix everything at once. So this is how ethical hackers decide what to work on first. They always go after the highest risks.
And this really shows you something crucial. Ethical hacking isn't chaos. It's a highly disciplined process. There are formal methodologies, like this one from NIST, that lay out a clear game plan. You plan the engagement, you discover the vulnerabilities, you attack in a safe, controlled way, and then, and this is the most important part, you report everything back so the defenses can be made stronger.
All right, let's peel back another layer of this onion. To find those weaknesses we were talking about, a hacker has to be totally fluent in the fundamental language of all digital communication, and that language is network protocols.
So to find a system's weaknesses, you first have to understand exactly how data travels across a network. We use these conceptual models for that. The OSI model on the left, that's the 7-layer theoretical blueprint. But the TCP/IP model on the right, that's the 4-layer framework the internet actually runs on. And a good hacker has to master both, because different kinds of attacks target different layers of communication.
Now, within that framework, data gets sent around using different sets of rules. The two main ones you hear about are TCP and UDP. Just think of it this way. TCP is like registered mail. It's a little slower, but it makes absolutely sure your data gets there safely and in the right order. UDP, on the other hand, is like sending a postcard. It's incredibly fast, but there's no guarantee it'll arrive. Different apps use different protocols, all depending on whether they need reliability or just pure speed.
Okay, so let's put some of these ideas into practice. We're going to look at one of the oldest battlegrounds in all of security, a place where all these concepts we've talked about really come together: cracking the code of cryptography and passwords.
So cryptography is basically just the art of scrambling data so nobody can read it.
The two main flavors are symmetric, which uses one single shared key and is super fast, and asymmetric, which uses a public and a private key. It's a bit slower, but it brilliantly solves the tricky problem of how to share a secret key securely in the first place. You know, most modern systems, like the secure websites you visit every day, they actually use a clever hybrid of both.
Now, let's talk about passwords for a second. Systems almost never store your actual password. Instead, they store a mathematical hash of it. One of the most powerful attacks against this system uses what are called rainbow tables. These are just gigantic pre-computed dictionaries that can instantly match a stolen hash all the way back to the original password.
But there is an incredibly powerful and really elegant defense called salting. It's so simple. Before hashing your password, the system just adds a unique, random string of characters, the salt. This means that even if two people have the exact same password, their hashes will be completely different. And just like that, those massive rainbow tables become totally useless. It's a brilliant silver bullet to the problem.
And that really brings us right to the core challenge of it all. Understanding these fundamentals, from intent and risk all the way to protocols and cryptography, it's absolutely essential. But what it really shows us is that cybersecurity isn't some destination you arrive at. It's a constant, never-ending race. Which leaves us all with a pretty critical question. As the threats get smarter and faster every single day, are our digital defenses actually strong enough to keep up?